Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. Joining us as usual, there's Gary Groob, our co-host, and of course, we have our guest, Blaze Riorden of the Rochester Knighthawks of the NLL and the Carolina Chaos of the PLL. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we always ask, and we're always interested. How did you pick up the stick?
My dad pretty much has been the driver behind, not only my success, but my love for this game of lacrosse. My dad played growing up at a time not a lot of people played. And as long as I can remember, I always had a lacrosse stick next to my toy bin. And I think he kind of encouraged me to pick that up more than other things. And it's one of the foundations of my life that have stuck with me to this day.
Now, you're still in it. What's kept you in it?
My love for this game, my will to compete. There's not a lot of other places in my life, that I find that same feeling. So that definitely keeps me going. And, I guess at this point, just creating a legacy, not only for myself, but for, a lot of people that have sacrificed a lot to allow me this opportunity. And I, just like anything else, I just love it.
NLL, PLL, what's the difference?
Yeah, they're really different for me in the fact that I play two different positions. Maybe, I don't know, my status in one league might be a little different than in the other league. I think I'm a little more established in the Premier Lacrosse League. I grew up playing goalie compared to the NLL where, maybe my role is different, more of, a role player, the leadership role, kind of what's expected to me compared to when I play in the PLL. But just, for me, playing two different positions, it feels like two totally different seasons, two totally different games in the sense of, the gameplay, the rules, the physicality, the speed of it, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And, lastly is kind of the locker room dynamic of, a more American-based league that's obviously filling in with a lot of Canadian and Haudenosaunee players compared to, the NLL where, there's only a handful of Americans in each locker room. So it makes the team dynamic a little different and, very entertaining.
Playing two different positions, how does that improve the other position, if you understand my question?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think if the easiest comparison would be to compare it to a corporate job where, usually the people at the top of the food chain understand everyone's responsibilities, not just their own. And that puts them at a level of expertise. Like a quarterback in football, you need to know what the defense is doing, your receivers' jobs, your running backs' jobs. And I feel like that maybe puts you, from a mindset standpoint, a little bit ahead of the game. I guess you can take, those two things. But as far as like the actual playing goes, stick skills go a long way. Communicating goes a long way. But other than that, it's more just, passion for the game that allows me to do both.
Gary.
So let's go and drill back a little bit. Growing up in Fairport, were there key coaches or mentors along the way that got you in the right direction?
Yeah, I've been blessed my whole life with, awesome coaches who kind of feel like fatherly figures. But, as I mentioned, my father was a huge reason that me and my friends and teammates growing up were, all successful throughout high school, collegiately. And, one of my best friend, Derek the Joe, growing up, who, played at Syracuse, played in the MLL, continues to give back to the game today. A lot of that, was my dad, Mike Riorden, and my friend Derek's dad, Steve the Joe, who introduced us to youth lacrosse at a young age, made sure every kid had sticks that threw properly. They weren't just grabbed out of a bin. They did their best to, equipped people in a way where the pads fit, it felt comfortable. They wanted it to be the best situation that we could have at a young age. And then that turned into township travel teams where we practiced a little more, just the more elite players. And we got, custom made jerseys that were made by Steve and my dad. And I think that kind of really set the foundation, moving forward. And, we've had, some legendary coaches and players in our town, guys like Tim Sudan, Jack Monty, Randy Garrett, and, the current varsity lacrosse coach, Mike Torelli, who, really just emphasized our entire career the importance of having fun and loving the game and playing it the right way. And I feel like that message was started at a young age and carried through high school. And I was just lucky enough to then land at a university where Division I lacrosse is often thought about as, a full-time job. Every recruiting seminar I sat in as a 15-year-old kid was like, hey, you're signing up to be a part of a full-time job, and that comes with responsibilities. And, I'm blessed to say, in my 4 years at the University at Albany, like, it really never felt like it was a job. It was fun. It's where I wanted to be. We kept it entertaining through, exotic roster photos, through playing Pearl Jam, the air guitar, and, Coach Mar just allowing us to be ourselves and have fun. And, I've just been super grateful for those mentors and coaches in my life.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the Coach Mar and the programming itself, because there's such a story program and you had such great teammates along the way. Let's drill into a little bit of Albany in its own right.
Yeah. I think it's a special place for a lot of reasons. One, you can tell that the community fully backs lacrosse. When you step on campus, we have a great athletic program where multiple sports shine and are successful. But, you do feel like at times that, you as a lacrosse player, you're one of the top, athletes on campus. So that kind of makes it special where maybe you go to some of these other big time Division I programs where, they have football and basketball that are selling out every night, and, hockey, where at Albany it was, lacrosse was really important. And then, I think just, you talk about Albany and, it's blue collar ways, and, Coach Mar really digging into the native communities and bringing Haudenosaunee lacrosse players off the reservations to, have a chance to play college lacrosse. And, me and my teammates all benefited from that immensely, with the likes of the Thompson trio and, all the other natives that came before and have came after. But just being a kid from New York State, it's a state school. You take a lot of pride in, wearing the Albany colors. And, as I mentioned, I just think Coach Mar's done such a great job of, not creating a mold, but allowing guys to be themselves, to play the style they want. It's not your traditional, hey, when you're on this side of the field, you're in this hand. When you're on this side, you're in this hand. Hey, don't do this, don't do that. It was like, no, be yourself, trust your instincts, be creative, throw it behind the back, throw a one-handed pass,
Right.
Keep the stick in your strong hand. And he just, finds a way to make that work. And that's what makes it so special.
Was that the place where you really started to change the approach towards leadership and regular preparation?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. I think my first couple years, I had a big role on the team being the starting goalie, and, I actually played man up my first 2 years as well. So I had a lot on my plate as a player, and I think, that growth maybe came more towards my junior year. I was pretty immature my first couple years. I think, at times I let my emotions get the best of me, and, and it was a learning process. But my junior year, after having some success, what was just a big year in general for me, between playing on the U.S. men's national team in the 2015 Indoor World Games. I was the only collegiate player on the team.
Right.
I felt like being around grown men and professional lacrosse players and playing on the same field and watching how they lead and interact really, I learned a ton. And, it was a time where, you're the starting goalie on your Division I team. You're kind of a top dog to wow, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm the young guy. I'm carrying the balls. I'm learning. I'm listening. I'm trying to be a sponge. So I think that experience was great. Obviously there was a viral goal that went into play when I went coast to coast against Cornell, and we had success. But it was and at the end of the day, the season ended with another heartbreak loss to Notre Dame in the quarterfinals, 2 years in a row. And, I think even a lesson in that just teaches you, like, you can't get too high on the highs and lows on the lows. Like, so much great came out of it. And at the end of the day, like, when you look at it, we didn't accomplish our goals of becoming national championships. And, I think when you get both perspectives and you understand both, it helps you become, a stronger athlete, both mentally, physically, and your will to want to be great, grows in situations like that.
Right. Now, as a goalie there, you actually changed how the position was viewed to the point where it is now today, just by being such an aggressive guy because the usual thing is goalies in the crease, makes a good pass, outlet pass, and away we go. You would put a whole new idea to transition. Nobody knew how to guard. And hence we got the viral video of you scoring, but just keep going. The only one that really came to mind around this area was Brett Queener. Used to do that quite a bit as well.
Yep. Brett Queener grew up in Penn Yan, New York, about 50 minutes away from where I grew up. We played Penn Yan every year in high school.
Right.
I have a lot of friends from Penn Yan. I grew up idolizing Brett and his style of play. He ended up at Albany. He played some man up. He had a flair for the theatrics,
Right.
in and out of the cage. And, that's the way that I learned how to play. That's what I knew it as, because I think growing up, knowing the confidence of, yeah, you're the goalie, but, you also have the ability to go down and play attack. If why not intertwine the two and, try to elevate, what's already been done and make it, better and make it more proficient. And, a lot of times when people see something different or see change, or, it's not your typical way, they go, oh, he reinvented anything, when in all honesty, all I was doing was using all the tools that I've acquired over years of practicing, watching the game, knowing how the game's played. And just a simple mindset that my dad always put in my head is, it's lacrosse. It's not checkers or chess. A lot happens in a lacrosse game. And there's a time and a place for pretty much anything. And I just think that, mixed with Coach Mar's, desire to want to play fast lacrosse. When I was at the university, we played two-way midfielders, old school. You play defense.
Right.
We're clearing the ball as fast as possible, whether you're a pull, face-off guy, goalie, doesn't matter what you are. If you're up the field and you're one of the first three guys, you're going. And you got to have the ability to score, and you got to have the ability to pass and catch and make plays. And we practiced that stuff, and we all bought into that style. That's the style we wanted to play. It was a no shot clock era, and if there was a shot clock, I bet less than 5% of our possessions would even come close to touching that 90-second mark. We played fast, and we played like that always, no matter the situation, anytime we had our jerseys on.
Yeah, and every team had to be on their toes because they weren't quite sure where it was coming from, especially with you in the back and being able to take it down the field.
Yeah, and I think more times I spent maybe clearing the ball in the tight windows to allow other guys opportunities to push transition than I did running it out myself.
Right.
But I think in the world of 10-man clear or 10-man rides, and how athletic people are getting, the easy out would be, hey, you hear it all the time, let the goalie walk it up. Let the goalie walk it up. Take away, their midfielders, take away their defense, let the goalie walk it up. Well, having the ability to walk it, run it up, make the play myself kind of eliminated that and evened out the playing field when you go to clear the ball.
Right. Now, you're also known for having great hands. And when did that start, coming into your mind, the aha moment of, I can do this. I can do this at an elite level?
Yeah. I think it's years of stick work, and I'll be the first one to admit, for as good as my coordination is, and my hands and my stick, I can't juggle. I can juggle two items, with one hand, but I can't juggle 3 or 4 balls I grew up jump roping a lot. I've always been, a bigger body, but I just think a lot of, my hand speed is directly correlated with my mindset entering lacrosse games. And,
Right.
I think everyone's heard it from their coaches at some point, through your life. Like when you enter the lacrosse field, just leave everything else, out the door and just play with a free mind. And that's something that I, really, really focus on and really dive into, especially as I get older here and more stuff is, going on in my life where when it's time to buckle the helmet up, I do a good job of flushing all those problems, all of those, thoughts out of my head. And it just puts me into a free flow state where, I just let my instincts and skills take over.
Right. Now, how did we get into box lacrosse? You had such an elite career as a collegiate goalie. How did box lacrosse come into the equation?
Yeah, I grew up going to Nighthawks games my entire life. Went to Syracuse games. Went to every high school game. I mean, my family we were lacrosse rats at a time where a lot of kids were good at playing and loved to play. But I mean, every extra opportunity you got, it was really revolved around lacrosse. And I grew up playing a form of Americanized box lacrosse where you
Right.
play with like a field lacrosse net indoors. Um, and my dad always used to say, "Hey, you don't have to play goalie because I know it's hard to see the ball indoors. Why don't you play some attack, get out of the net?" So I would do that. So I developed some skills. And when I got to Albany, I mentioned I played man up
Yeah.
along with playing goalie. And Ty Thompson approached me halfway through my freshman year. We used to go down and shoot. We had this place called the Bubble. It was tennis court, but it was covered by from the Albany cold, and there would be a ripped up lacrosse net in there, and we put it in the corner and shoot twisters and floaters and leaners. And he would I would be like, "How do you do this? How do you do that?" And he was like, "You should come try out for the junior B team on my reservation." And I was like, "I would love to." Like, he's like, "Just come live with me, try it out for a couple weeks, I'll get you in contact with the coach." So I went down. Garrett Cree was the coach at the time. Showed up to my first game in Gloucester playing against the Gloucester Griffins. I was ripping the neck guard off my helmet because I couldn't get the screw out. So I was literally yanking it, trying to break it off because I didn't want to be running around the game with my goalie neck guard on.
Sure.
I get it off. I play my first game. Wasn't very good. Kind of loved it. Was a little bit intimidated. Was like, geez, what did I sign up for? Where am I? I don't even know where I am right now. Where is Gloucester? I need my passport everywhere I go. A couple games went by. Fell in love with it. And for the next 3 summers, 2013, 14, and 15, I spent my summers playing box lacrosse up on the res for the Junior B Akwesasne Indians. Eventually won a Founders Cup in 2015, and it led to an opportunity to try out for the U.S. men's national indoor team. I did that. I got selected, and I think that's kind of, a big clicking point where I was like, oh, I'm on the floor with all these guys that I watched playing in the NLL.
Right.
I'm still standing. I'm learning. I'm not fully comfortable, but I'm here, and this is 3 years of work. If I continue to do this, then if this is something I want to do, I can do it. And I chose to go all in on lacrosse, and whatever that encountered, and it's led me to owning my own club, playing in both leagues, playing for the national teams, doing camps, clinics, going to schools, and talk about being healthy and playing sports. And it's just been a really rewarding choice that I decided to make as a 21-year-old kid.
Right. Now, I want to talk about a couple of moments in your life of both PLL and NLL. I'll start with NLL, and it comes down to draft day. And you get drafted by your home team of Rochester. Talk about that particular day and the feelings that came through. Go, wow, I've made it to the NLL, at least in the draft.
Yeah, well, I'll correct you. I was undrafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a draft party. I was in contact with a handful of coaches. Thought I had a good shot. A lot of coaches mentioned that 3rd, 4th round.
Mhm.
My name never got called, and I was devastated. And my dad came knocking the next day on my door and was like, "Hey, like, this is where you decide, what your life's going to look like. You can start applying for jobs, or you can pick up your stick and get better today, and and keep your name in the hat. And luckily, the Buffalo Bandits reached out and offered me a tryout as an unrestricted free agent. I think I was competing with 9 lefties at the time. Ended up earning a spot on the team. Played in the first game. Played 9 games. And year 2 comes around. They signed me back to a contract. The 3 days before our first game, I got a call saying that you were released. And I was like, oh well, at least I got to try it. And a month went by working for UPS. In the Arena Lacrosse League, Gavin Prout called my name. Him and Brad MacArthur, they were coaching the Whippy Steelhawks at the time, and I drove up every weekend because I missed it so much, and won an Arena Lacrosse League championship. I think I scored the most goals I've ever scored in a season. My confidence was there. I felt like I had nothing to lose. My back was against the wall, and it awarded me an opportunity. And during an expansion draft with the Wings, Paul Day reached out, and I signed, moved to Philly a month later. And, for the last 7.5 years, have been all in there. And, at a time in my life where there's a lot changing, my wife and I are expecting our first child in about 4 weeks. We're moving back, towards family, and I get a call saying, hey, you've been traded to Rochester. And, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And, I'm just here today, just so excited, for a new start, for what it brings for my family, in the surrounding area, to watch me compete, at this stage in my career. And, I'm just super grateful.
Right. Now, I want to also come back to the Arena Lacrosse League. I've been the media guy since 2019. I love the league. I love everything about the league. And you are absolutely what the league means, because there's so many guys in there that are either coming down from the NLL, trying to get back up to it, trying to get there for the first time. The league, in my eyes, shows someone how to become a pro and stay a pro, because it's put something like 30 or 40 guys into the league that stayed permanently. Talk about just the culture and again, the coaching and things like that. And Gavin Prout is synonymous with being up there in the upper echelon, especially in summer ball too, with Brooklyn and all that. But talk to me about the league, just the culture for guys.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds you of the NLL in the sense that, for me personally, driving 5 hours every game, the travel aspect, but the league itself, still going strong. Games were always on schedule. The competition was great. I felt like at times some of the nights that I was playing, like I was more on edge than I have been in NLL games, because everyone out there is really hungry to prove something, and is willing to do whatever it takes, to get noticed. But I credit a lot of my experience, honestly, to the coaching staff. A lot of these coaches in this league are, NLL tier coaches with limited teams in the National Lacrosse League. I feel like it really allows them a spotlight to show, their worth and their commitment to a team. And I think that's really just what stood out to me the most is, I was like, well, this isn't the National League. I played in the National League. I was still playing professional outdoor at the time. I was playing for Team USA. Like, this is supposed to be a step down. And, it never really felt like that when I showed up, because the passion of the players and the coaches, how organized and how much they wanted to win. And just being in that environment really reminded me of, my love for competing and for this game. And it checked all those boxes while allowing me to develop my skills. So, I couldn't speak any more highly of the Arena Lacrosse League and, what they've accomplished and what they continue to accomplish.
Right. It's funny because another good friend of mine, Craig Wendy, former NLL goalie, he's another one who went undrafted, and that just put the hunger in his belly even more so to work harder, play for more teams, and play everywhere, even playing for Team Germany just to make sure he got reps. And eventually, hard work pays off, and off he went into the NLL for a little while. I see the same thing with you, just the extra hard work, and just take put down the lunchbox, and away we go. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get there. And it brings me to Philadelphia. And because it was such a beautiful thing to see a hardworking guy in a blue collar town, and take it full circle is when they put the C on you, is to show that kind of leadership. And now you have the room, and just with your heart and soul. And you can see it just when we're talking in an interview that you can't fake this stuff. People see right through that. So to be that kind of man and that kind of player, it's easy to see why they gave you the C.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It definitely was a very honorable moment of my career. I think, one thing that, was ingrained in me at a young age is if you're going to do something, be all in. And I'm truly someone that cares about others, more than I care about myself. And, I just think, the opportunity that Paul allowed me to come back and live out my dream in my first couple years in Philadelphia were just so exciting to me that, it kind of took over my life. I decided to go all in, moving here, ingraining myself in the community, doing whatever it took, for the team. And, at the end of the day, I think the experiences that you gain through playing, through talking with veterans, through being on teams, I play, I laugh. I play probably 52 weekends out of the year for the last 5 years.
Right.
The amount of people that I've met, that I've learned from, that I've watched lead, where, I might not be saying much, but I'm an observer and I'm seeing things like those things stick with me and allow me to grow as a leader and as a man. And, just projecting those things on, was definitely cool. And, when you look back at it, it also reminds you, of the journey of, driving the 5 hours in snowstorms in a Jetta with, bald wheels, in the middle of the night to go play Arena Lacrosse League game, or, going and shooting with my dad at 6 a.m. before he goes to work because I needed a feeder. All those moments, that lead up that no one see, to get the recognition of being a leader and someone that people want to follow in the locker room, it is a rewarding feeling.
Right. But you also had the fan base. The fan base sees what kind of person you are, and that is really what Philadelphia is encompassed with. Those kind of people that really heart and soul, heart on the sleeve, and play like there's no tomorrow. And they gravitated towards you, and you were the perfect leader for that initial team that came through. Let's look at a little bit about some of the better moments of the team while you were there. Is that it really defined how that team was run, right? Like they had some problems with wins here and there, whatever, but the general feeling in that room was one of unity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, the dynamics changed a lot over, there was different stages of my career there, being a young guy that, wasn't playing in the league to joining an expansion team where you had the guys like Jordan Hall and Chuck Konechny and, like these veteran guys, that are towards the end of their career that are coming in to lead, a bunch of young guys that are new into the career. We're playing in a new city. We're obviously in Philadelphia, like, the not pressure, but there was a clear understanding of what the people expect in Philadelphia and in the game style. And, you transfer that into, getting guys like Joe Resiteris and Mitch Jones and, and you have these big name guys and, you're trying to win. And then, we this year we get younger and there's a lot of American guys and, so there was a lot of change and, a change in the coaching staff. But one thing, was for certain playing there was we knew that we had a group of fans that were passionate, that knew what they wanted. We knew we were playing for a storied franchise that had a lot of success. The alumni were, very involved. Scott Gabrielson, Tony Resch, all those guys. We had alumni nights. They were still broadcasting. I would get text messages from Tony after big wins saying, you brought back good memories. That's how, the Philadelphia Wings play lacrosse. All that stuff was great and, allowed, the experience to be amplified.
Right. Because we've had a lot of the alumni on the show here, going back to even the 74-75 Wings. And I met Larry Lloyd to talk to us about, coming in. And remember, the Flyers won the Cup the day that Philadelphia had their very first game. And the place was absolutely insane. And you had a bunch of guys who were from Peterborough who had never really left the area.
Yeah.
And they're going into the big city over in Philadelphia and seeing just everybody going absolutely mind nuts. And they had a full spectrum for their first game. And, that's how Philadelphia lacrosse, the history began. And it's heartfelt that it's still, that same feeling with all the alumni is still there. And all you have to do is go to any of the post-game parties to see how many of them are there and how many are willing to, chat it up about the old days.
Yeah, and I think, what really stood out to me is, through my community engagement, I went to a lot of schools. I probably visited, over 100, probably 200 schools in my time in Philly, talking to the kids. And, one of the first questions we ask is, have you heard of lacrosse? Have you heard of the Philadelphia Wings? And, a handful of the kids would raise their hands, but a lot of the times the teachers in the room would raise their hands. And, when the assembly would be over, a lot of them would come up to us and say, hey, when I was a kid, I remember growing up, my parents would bring me to the Spectrum to watch the Philadelphia Wings. He's like, right. I didn't really know what lacrosse was, but, we went to a lot of games. They won a lot of championships. And, to hear that really, tells you the foundation that they left, while being here, which was, often times really cool to interact with these teachers that grew up with, kind of the same childhood dream that I did of going to games and remembering certain players. A lot of guys, mentioned Dallas Elliott and Jake Berge and, Ethan Iannucci's, 73 goal season or whatever it was. Like, people bring that stuff up. So, and honestly, the fan favorite was Jeff Snyder, for not only his ability to be a great lacrosse player, but to also, lay a nice punch. So,
absolutely. He also was the one who revolutionized the, win the draw score. Never mind just Fogo. Just, be as much as a nuisance on the floor, both offensively, defensively, or make you swallow one.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Now, again, we talked about it. You got traded to Rochester, back home. Talk about playing for Mearnsey. He's another former guest of ours. I love listening to Randy. Randy, he's so engaging, even in post-game press conferences. He's so engaging that, a 2-3 minute press conference becomes a 10-minute press conference. Talk about the energy that he brings into the room now.
Yeah, the energy is authentic energy that's 24/7, whether he's drinking his first cup of coffee in the morning or, whether it's an hour before the game. Like, he always just has that excitement. And, one thing, that I think that I've really, come to love and learn about Coach is, not only did he walk the walk as a player, but as a coach, like, he's just, he's very positive. He's not analyze something for 6 seconds, jump down your throat, and then reanalyze it, and maybe he's right or wrong. Like, he takes time to think. He's very thought out with his beliefs and what he sees. He's always encouraging you to do more. And, I think on top of that, I just think, he understands the room. I know this is his first time in the National Lacrosse League as a coach, but he coached collegiately, and obviously coaching 18 to 22, 23-year-old young men compared to, adults is different. And I feel like he really understands that. And, the stuff that he's preaching, not only do you carry on the field, but they're great life lessons off the field. He always, talked about change, change with me getting traded and change with, him taking over, as the head coach and stuff. And he said, with change, you hear the outside noise and, everyone has an opinion and you think and you think and you think, but he's like, really the only, true test is time that you put behind it. And that time is the most valuable thing. So he's like, what we put in behind that decision is ultimately going to be what we get out of it, and nothing, else really matters. And to me, a message like that really resonates deeply through his wisdom, through his charisma, and, through that energy that he brings.
Right. And as we talked about off air, what I think that he's done right away is giving you a role. Something that I think kind of disappeared in Philadelphia a little bit is you have that role again. And with all the other talent that's out there, the Lansburys, and of course Kyle Waters and Connor Fields and all the rest of the guys that are there, they didn't have a guy who did what you did, which is crash the net, can also have a booming shot from outside, and just gives a whole different view to that offense. And it looks like it's right away you guys have meshed really nicely.
Yeah, I think, I laughed. I got traded on a Monday. Tuesday, I fly to Brampton to go to practice, and I'm in practice, and I looked at Ryan Smith, and I was like, wow, the ball moves really fast here. I said, it almost like I gotta up my decision making. I gotta up my game. I gotta, always be ready. Where maybe I felt like I lost that a little bit.
Right.
But I think the guys have been super welcoming. It's been nice that I had a relationship with Connor at Albany. I played with Ryan Smith on the Chaos. I grew up playing with Zed on every travel team that there was. So I had a lot of comfortability going in, and I just think Coach Kyle and Coach Mearns instilled a ton of confidence. They mix me in on the power plays at times. I don't really have a leash. They know. That I've kind of played a certain role, and that I accept that. So there's no, ego attached. And now it's just, giving me the keys to make those decisions, whether, I'm setting a big pick, or, I'm slipping, or, I'm picking and popping, or I'm not hesitating when I do get my opportunity to shoot. And, it's been a really fun offense to play in. They elevate the guys around them. And, the first handful of games, have been, a fresher breath air. But, I also know that, internal confidence and understanding that, I've had 30 full season in this league, and, what I'm capable of, and understanding I have to be the best version of myself to bring out the best version of everyone else, and focusing on that along the way as well.
Absolutely. All right, let's pivot over into the PLL, and you've certainly carved out your legacy, if you will, in the PLL. 5-time goalie of the year, an MVP, which is unheard of for a goalie, let alone a number of accolades in the All-Star games and all of that. Talk to me about the league, and of course, we had all this stuff going from the MLL and PLL to just the PLL, and talk about being with the Rabels and just the whole organization and how it's elevated, because it's a made-for-TV product, which is how we grow this damn game.
Yeah. First and foremost, the style of playing the PLL is different than the style that you play in high school. It's different than the style that you play at the Olympics. It's different than the style that you play in college. It's a fast shot clock, shortened fields. It's, in my opinion, electric. There's a lot of action. The athletes that it's producing just makes for, a really fast game, a lot of high scoring. You add the 2-point arc, you add, guys shooting the ball 120 miles per hour with long poles, and, it checks off a lot of those boxes. And, I think, we're in exciting times, and it's easy to be a hater. And you see that a lot, which, you're like, okay, well, these guys are trying to make a difference, and they're going all in. And, as a player, I played in Major League Lacrosse as well. And just to see, what my life is today, and the product, and, the media aspect of it, and the health benefits, and the contracts, and the notoriety that we're getting as Premier Lacrosse League players, in my opinion, they're doing exactly what they said, and they're going all in. And, to think that, that it's going to be a top 4 sports league overnight is a mistake.
Right.
They navigated through COVID when a lot of people shut down during COVID. They've elevated game experiences. The product continues to get better. You just saw an influx of a lot of younger players come in and win major awards. That's really healthy for, the game of lacrosse in the league. And, I just think it's, an awesome platform to play in and to be a part of.
They've also gone one step further, as if anybody's listened to me over the last 15 years, is that linear TV It has to be on there. It's all fine and good to have it on apps and have it on NLL Plus and have all the rest of this stuff. But in order for it to grow, a bar owner has to be able to put it on their TV and leave it on TSN or ESPN or whatever. And in comes a game, and I've watched it that you see the crowd slowly turn to the TV and they're fixed on it because it is the most addictive game in the world. So by the Ravens doing that and getting it on ABC is a whole other animal of being able to, when you're going up against NFL football and winning, that's impressive in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen kind of a shift in over the last 10 years of, the technology that's available in today's world, and, the social media aspect and the advertising aspect and all that. And I just think that, they understand that. They started a league during that time, and, to where a lot of other professional sports league have already been established. They have their ways, they've been successful, so there's no need to change those ways. Whereas the PLL, makes its foot mark. Well, they're starting during different times. So the two options are, adjust to the times that are now and capitalize on it, or take the easy route and do what was traditionally worked, 50 years ago, 75 years ago, when these other, leagues came about. And, I think they've done a great job. At times, every time you scroll social media, you see a lot of, commercials, advertisements, stuff like that. Like they're really, all in on the new way of doing things. And, the audience that they're attracting are, young kids and lacrosse players, that this is how they go about their day. And ultimately, those are the people that you want to attract because they'll be fans for a long time. And that's starting at the roots level.
Right. And they're also not afraid to tinker with, what was traditional of a game by putting in a 2-point shot, also putting in this shot clock and a few other things to make the game more TV friendly, to try and keep, because everybody has ADD now. Nobody can sit and watch too long on anything. So to keep that focus, they really have to keep maneuvering the game, and they're able to do it. That's why with the Olympics coming up in a couple of years' time, with them behind it, I'm pretty confident, with the tournament, with the sixes thing, to keep trying different things and maneuvering it so that when we finally get on the big stage, there isn't any problems. All the little bugs have been worked out.
Yeah, and they started their own champ series, which is a sixes format, to introduce that. And yeah, I mean, that was one of the biggest things that I said and noticed. Maybe it's the way my brain works, that I'm kind of one of those people. It's hard to sit down for 2.5 hours, but to watch a PLL game from start to finish on TV is usually about an hour and 30 to an hour and 40 minutes, max, which, to me is awesome. It's fast paced, easy to watch. I think if you're, as the game of lacrosse continues to grow and more people get into it, it's a great time to light the fire of trying to introduce new fans and, take things from other sports. People love watching Steph Curry drain one from deep. Okay. So in lacrosse, people are going to love watching Jared Newman shoot the ball 120 miles an hour from deep. People like to see, the hitting. There's hitting like there is in hockey, the fast pace of running up and down the field like there is in soccer. Like you're just taking a lot of different sports, in the popular parts and introducing it slowly but surely into this game, which hopefully, attracts more eyes. And, it's an easy watch for people to sit down and be like, oh, that was really cool. That was cool. I don't know what's going on, but that was cool. Like you can recognize those little things. And I think that's a huge part of, new eyeballs and creating fans.
The pace of the game helps as well.
Yes.
It also doesn't hurt when your championship games come down to the final seconds.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I've learned through my 10 years of being a professional lacrosse player. These leagues are so tight. They're 1-goal games, whether you're the first place team in the league or the last. Like every game's winnable, every game's losable. It makes it super exciting. You see it in the NLL right now, that this playoff race, for those last couple spots is tight. And, every quarter, every minute's going to matter for, 4 or 5 teams. And, that's what makes it exciting as a fan and as a player.
Absolutely. Now, I want to get your perspective on this because you're both a goalie and an attackman. And, of course, sixes for the Olympics, You bring a whole new dilemma to a coach. Is do they put you in net? Do they put you as a forward? What do they do with you?
Yeah, I think obviously 2028, there's still a little time behind that. But I just think that kind of that Swiss Army knife of 11 or 12 man rosters. Bringing one goalie is really risky. You risk the opportunity of your goalie getting injured, and you're pretty much chalking up the tournament. So being in a role where I can take up a roster spot and fulfill multiple positions on the field. I think it is, kind of, the angle in which, I decided to take as a 32-year-old with a couple more years till the Olympics. I'm all in on it. I've been in the process, and it's kind of shaken out that way where it's a goalie mentality first. And, throughout a tournament where there's, a game every day and it's fast and, the heat of summer, like, having the ability to take some shifts and give guys rest or give guys a day off and pick up a short stick, hopefully makes me, a valuable, asset.
Quantity, yeah, definitely. I think so. As a goalie, though, doesn't it get a little bit daunting that it's like, with these big 6x6 nets, it's 37 to 32. That just doesn't do a whole lot for the confidence, does it?
Yeah, no, it's tough, but I think one thing is you don't actually like the pain tolerance. You're not getting stepped down. You're not getting blasted with shots a lot. You're getting a lot of doorstep shots, and those ones always feel extra good to steal. So you feel like every save that you make is more crucial than maybe in your typical field lacrosse game. And ultimately, I think for a young kid, for a high school goalie, my high school self thinking about standing in net and letting in 30 goals in a game would probably not be something that I would be able to tolerate or handle. But I think when you get to this level and the stage that you're on, understanding that they're going to score and that every save you steal is a steal, it is one of the toughest things to do. It's easier said than done, but it's just something that you kind of develop, over your career playing against the best guys in the world that, even on your best day, sometimes their best is going to beat you.
The good news on Grasson and 6 is the percentage of stops you make are less. That's the good news. I mean, I know the bad news is more goals, but you're getting beaten on less if you're a goaltender when you play in the Olympics, because the nets are going to be bigger, aren't they, Gary?
Well, they're 6x6,
right?
We had thought about maybe making 4x4 to give it lower scoring games, but it was Coach Bob Terring, who
tough on the goalie.
Brought us up to that one, going, the poor goalies are going to get killed because the shooters are so accurate that they'll be going for them as opposed to picking corners and maybe saving lives.
I'll speak for myself. When USA is across your chest, you're not feeling much pain either way. So.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Sure. I believe you.
I want to hit on the All-Star game idea because you've played it in PLL and you've been a star in there winning the goaltending competition stuff. Has the NLL missed the boat by not having an All-Star game since 2010 with all the talent and ESPN and TSN and having all this at their fingertips?
I think challenges wise, I think it would be cool for the fans to, see a shooting accuracy competition and, see a fastest shot competition and see, the true athleticism of some of these players, maybe, with the speed challenge and, a skills challenge. It's a hard question to answer because as a player that plays in both, I know how thin that I'm spread already. And I just think, when you watch, even you watch the PLL one, in field lacrosse, you can get away with, there's more space. So there's not as much, whacking when there doesn't need to be. You can get away with less of the physicality where I feel like box lacrosse, if you're on the defense end, there's only really one way to play. So, I think from a fan perspective, I think it would be really cool to see the best players, in the same jersey, playing with each other and seeing what they're able to produce, and the creativity involved. As a player, I think our bodies are stretched pretty thin, and I understand their reasoning why they don't.
Right. I'm going to bring up Frank's idea from a long time ago, an old NHL idea, which was instead of having just a bunch of guys playing around kind of like flag football, is that we would have the All-Stars playing whoever is the champion. So this time around it'd be Buffalo right now, and we would let it be in the champion's home. So of course KeyBank Center for now, and we'd have given them basically 2/3 of a year to market it, so we could get a good crowd for it. But there'd be something on the line because no one wants to lose to the Bandits. And the Bandits don't want to lose to the All-Stars. So there'd be that much more elevation for the game itself, let alone the skills competition at the half.
Yeah, well, it also presents an opportunity for the All-Star team to, leave bruises on the Buffalo Bandits to help prevent them from another opportunity of winning a championship. So I think you're really opening up some doors that, that although might be good for the fans, for the players, you play to win for the standings and to make playoffs and to win the championship. And
right, well, that's
the extra stuff presents a lot of liability.
Right, like I say, that's the beauty of the player's perspective, because the fans' perspective is, we'd love it. Yeah, that's a great point that nobody has brought up. Even any of the other players that I've talked to about it, nobody's brought up that particular thing. I just want to end with this one: is how do you want the lacrosse world to remember you?
Pretty simply that I did it my way. I think playing two positions is unique on its own. My whole life I battled being a bigger guy. Being successful in both, and I think something that I learned at a small age when it came to picking up water bottles on the sidelines and orange peels is just leave it better than you found it. And I hope people understand that. I'm authentically myself. I truly care about this game and, the next generation that comes behind me, and, that I'm a proud professional athlete, a proud professional lacrosse player, during times where some people would tell you their full-time job before their lacrosse job. And, I'm full-time lacrosse. I haven't worked a day in my life, and I'm grateful for the people in it. That motivated me to be where I am today.
Right. Is coaching on the horizon down the road? I know you do a lot of clinics and other things.
Yeah, I do a lot of coaching too. I coached high school. I ran a box lacrosse program called BR10 Lacrosse. I do lessons. I'll never shut a door. Lacrosse is filled with opportunities. Every opportunity that I've said yes to is, taught me something, has given me a cool experience, and I won't say no to any opportunity in the future.
Right. Well, if you ever need help marketing, please reach out. More than happy to do things for you to get the word out.
I appreciate that.
Blaze, thank you so much. I know you're busy, and I know you got a lot of things on the go, and we're still in a playoff hunt, and PLL is just around the corner. For taking the time to talk about your life in lacrosse, I really do appreciate that, and I wish you all the success in the world.
Yeah, I appreciate your guys' time. It was great questions, super organized, and hopefully as fans, you enjoy the last final couple regular season weeks of the NLL, as I know us players are really excited.
Absolutely. I'll be spreading the word in Prague too, because I'm out to the Rubeski tournament in a week and a half as well. So
I'll be there one day.
We'll be watching the NLL Plus in 3:00 in the morning and catching all that too. So
I'll be there one day.
Oh, you'll love it. You'll love it. Believe me, you go once, you're never going to stop going.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Frank?
Yeah, hey, good job. I really appreciate you being here. And 30 years of covering lacrosse, it's been a real adventure. And I got to tell you, a lot of fun too. And I'm glad, Blaze, that you had a good time doing this. And I appreciate your insights as both a goalie and a forward. So that was an interesting take we had a chance to, drill down on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you've enjoyed the journey as well. This game's special. It's a small community. It's its own niche right now, but it's the people and the experiences and, the medicine game that make it special. So I'm glad that, your experience has, been fulfilling as so as mine.
Absolutely. I've had to dodge the odd lacrosse ball.
Yeah.
in my
Well, I
time.
don't get that option, so consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, but I'm holding the mic. Why am I dodging it? Never mind. Anyway, that's another story. People here know the story, and someday we'll tell you about that. Listen, thank you so much, Blaze. Blaze Riorden of the Rochester Knighthawks, and of course the Carolina Chaos of the PLL. Thanks for watching us. For Gary Groob and Blaze Riorden, thank you for watching. We'll see you again on Thursday at 4 o'clock again.